and talk about, hopefully, if folks have been following along, they are still tracking their spending, right? Because you don't track your spending for like a couple days or a week and then be done, right? Does that make sense?
Multiple.
Uh-huh.
It's all about what you're learning about yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you're learning a lot through this process, right? I know
Yeah.
I do when I go through it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, tracking your spending, and I say this all the time, is no one's favorite thing. I love to talk about money. I love to do this budget thing. Most people don't even love all that. But I love that kind of stuff. I don't love tracking my spending. It's not the most fun part of this process. But it is probably arguably the most impactful process or part of the process. Because like you just said, Amy, you can really learn not only about what you're spending your money on, but you can learn something about yourself. And you're not going to learn something about yourself if you write down what you're spending for a week or two. And technically, if you're just getting started, you really probably should track your spending for a couple of months at least to get a better understanding. And then you can learn things like, oh, I see here that, when I go to XYZ store, I seem to spend a little bit more than when I don't. Or when I shop online, I spend a little bit less than when I go into the store. And so you can, or, I spend more on my kids than I spend on myself, or I spend a lot on my parents, and maybe I should, whatever it is. There's so many things that you can learn about yourself and about your sort of your habits from tracking your spending.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing I want to encourage everybody to do as you're going through this is also be thinking about not what are my habits on a regular monthly basis, just I think a lot of times with spending, people think of like the four walls. Like I've got, my house that I spend on, I've got my car, maybe I have my insurances, groceries, the kind of norms, but also be thinking broader picture, what tools and resources do I need to be aware of that maybe I don't currently have in my tool belt, if you will, right? That maybe you start asking around a little bit, go to, somebody that, you trust as maybe an advisor and say, this is a goal that I have. Do you think what I'm doing currently, do you think that's going to help me get to that goal efficiently? The whole point of this process of the first we talked about organize it, and then the second we talked about having now an awareness, and then we talked about going in now, what do we do with this newfound information? It's each one of those steps progressively. Now we're starting to think bigger picture. Now we're starting to think about things like, hey, I know we've got a roof coming up on our house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big expense. I got to be thinking about the whole picture. We've been doing a lot of fine-tune tracking in this series, but then I also want to encourage you guys be thinking about what other things go beyond that simple, because that is an important part. It's not the only